This is the exact plan that I'm using to get lean for summer 2025. I'm gonna walk you through it in this video. So last year in March 1st, around about March 1st, I was sitting at about 15-16% body fat, and I made a decision that I wanted to get shredded for summer 2024. And 8 to 10 weeks later or so, I was down to about 10 to 11% body fat. For me, that was from like 205 pounds all the way down to like 193-ish pounds. So it was essentially 10 pounds in 10 weeks, maybe 12 pounds in 12 weeks. So it's a simple 3-step framework. You can apply it to your fitness goals and you'll get to it. Ultimately, for me, my long-term goal is to start a bulk in the summer, but I want to peel down to about 10% body fat or so again before I do that. So it's pretty simple. The first step is just going to be to assess where you are. And once you assess where you are, we can kind of set proper expectations. So for me right now, I'm at like the 14-ish% range. I'll put up a picture of my current physique, but I would say I'm probably in the 14% body fat range. So I don't need much, maybe 7-8 weeks of cutting before I can start a bulk. With that said though, I do have to be super consistent in order to see those kind of results in 6 to 7 weeks. Looking to lose about, I would say maybe 7-8 pounds before I'm about 10%. And for me, every percent is about 2 pounds. So the math kind of fares out. As far as setting proper expectations for yourself, the first thing is knowing where you are and knowing where you want to get to. So if you're at 20+% body fat, and let's say roughly you're at, like similar to me, every 1% of body fat is probably 2 pounds or so. It's going to take you longer than 6-7 weeks conservatively to get down to the ideal body fat that you want to get to, where you can probably have a visible 6-pack and things like that. So setting proper expectations is key. For me, the biggest way I'd like to do it is just estimating what body fat percentage I'm currently at. And with that I can basically reduce the percentage and convert that into pounds. So for me, if I'm 200-ish pounds, every 1% is 2 pounds. So if you got to lose 10+% body fat, that's about 20 pounds. So what I like to do is just convert those pounds into calories that I have to burn, which for every pound of fat, you're looking to burn about 3,500 calories. So if you do the math, let's just do the math right now, 20 times 3,500. So for me, creating a realistic deficit with these, so for me, once I have the data of the calories that I have to lose, so in my plan, let's say it's about 8 pounds, 8 times 3,500, that's about 28,000 calories. If I divide that by, let's say the realistic deficit I think I can create is about 600 calories per day conservatively. We're looking at like 46 days. Divide that by 7, you're looking at like almost 7 weeks. So 46 days is not that much. But with that said, I do got to stay consistent. Otherwise, I'm just going to drag it out. That's why I said 600 calories is a conservative estimate. That will put me at about 1.2 pounds per week. So you can kind of copy and paste this and create your own plan. First of all, you just want to kind of figure out how many calories you have to burn by multiplying 3,500 by the amount of pounds that you have to lose. Then what you're going to want to do is set up a rough timeline so you have the proper expectations. And that's pretty much step 1. Step 2 is to set up your weekly and daily training plans. So it's very simple. For me, I pretty much dictate what I can do beforehand. I currently train 4 days per week in the gym. That's tracked training sessions. And then I do 2 days per week of boxing, more of like cardio boxing, technical boxing, things like that. I won't do a workout, a training session with weights on the days that I do boxing. So it's pretty much 6 days a week I'm training roughly. And then that 5th day, maybe I'll get in like a light lift or like a long walk or something like that. Take it more as like an active recovery day. So I encourage you to either go on ChatGPT, use an AI, or purchase a program that is something you can stick to. The important thing is to track the sessions. So, and apps like, they have apps like Heavy. I mean, I'm sure your favorite fitness influencer has an app as well, that you can not only pick a workout but follow it and track your sets, what reps and weight. I think it's super important because it's just establishing a baseline of what you're currently doing. If you've never done this before, it's super useful, so you can see week to week how your training and nutrition is essentially impacting each other. The final pro tip kind of thing when you're setting up your training plan is to put it in your calendar. So basically set an intention of when you're gonna do it. This is super useful for sticking to the program. And then jumping into phase 2 of the weekly and daily plan is obviously calculating your macros. So the simple way for me to do it is just multiply your body weight times 14 or 15, depending on how active you are. And I would subtract 4 to 600. So 4 to 600 is essentially would be the deficit. So let's say you're a 200-pound man, and we have times 14. You have 2,800 calories would be your maintenance, more or less, depending on how active you are. If you want to start on the conservative end, that would put you subtracting 400 calories. So you'd be at 2,400 calories per day, roughly. Then what I would do is set a protein target of your goal body weight in grams. So if you want to be 180, I would eat 180 grams of protein per day. So once you have those two things out of the way, those two macros are going to be the most important, which are just calories and protein. If you track those, you'll pretty much be fine. But if you want to get more technical and more optimized, I would say eating a minimum of 50 to 60 grams of dietary fats per day is super optimal for hormone function based on what I've experimented with, and then just filling in the rest with carbs. You could do more research on, what type of diet you want to do and what makes it easiest for you to stick to, but the most important thing is just being in a calorie deficit daily, bar none. It's the thing that works the most. For me, every fad diet, keto, carnivore, is just a different form of calorie restriction, just restricting an entire macronutrient basically is what you're doing when you're cutting out carbs or even low fat. You're doing calorie restriction by way of macronutrient restriction. So I would say that's the most important factor in losing this fat here for your goal for summer. So the action step is to set up the diet, set up the macros, and then get an app or something or even a spreadsheet, or even if you can actually create a chat with ChatGPT and just have conversations with it about what you're eating on a daily basis, and it will track the macronutrients and calorie intake for you. So I think a good action step at this point would just be to hypothetically plan out a few days of your diet. See what it would look like, kind of see what you're already eating, and track that, just to give you a rough estimate of how easy or hard this is going to be for you to stick to. My thing is I always like to visualize myself doing something before I commit to it. It just makes it easier to get in the groove of it. So if you can plan out a few days of your diet and think about where you're going to get the foods from, what time you're going to eat them. If you work, are you going to prep? If you work off site or at 9 to 5, are you going to prep the food beforehand? Where are you going to eat lunch on your lunch break? How does that fit into your diet? All those things are super useful if you can just think about the hypotheticals. So we have training, we have nutrition. The third phase of the weekly and daily plan is activity. So a lot of people think about activity as just like formal cardio. So like getting on the treadmill, getting on an elliptical, or doing maybe some sort of class, like a spinning class or something like that. For me, when I'm cutting, I find the best way to retain muscle is just to set kind of an activity baseline and prioritize more the resistance training with the weights. So what I mean by that is to say, hey, I won't go under 8,000, 10,000 steps per day generally. And you can ramp that up if you feel that it's not going to affect your hunger as a way to accelerate your fat loss. So let's say, for example, in my case, if I'm eating 2,500 calories, hypothetically, and I have an activity baseline of 10,000 calories. I know from wearing a fitness tracker and weighing myself on a weekly basis that at that deficit, I'm consistently at 500 calories per day or 3,500 per week. And the scale consistently matches the deficit from my tracker, or basically my activity baseline and the calorie intake that I have. Then I can ramp up from there if I feel that it's not going to affect my hunger. It's not going to make me more ravenous or anything like that. So for me personally, I aim to do about 12,000 steps per day on a deficit, and it's super easy for me to stick to. It's just a matter of carving out the actual time to walk. So we've covered setting up your training plan, setting expectations, setting up your nutrition plan, and setting an activity baseline. The final thing I would say is popping all this stuff into your calendar if you are going to commit to training, eating specific meals, and committing to walking on a regular basis if you're trying to increase your activity. Just setting the intention to do the things you need to do when you're supposed to do them is going to make this a lot easier for you. Tracking is super valuable. So for me, I use apps like FitnessPal. For nutrition, I use an app called Heavy, that's Hevy, for tracking my lifts. And I use the Aura Ring for getting data on like my activity and steps and things like that. This is what worked for me. I got pretty much the most shredded I've ever been. I had a full 6-pack last summer. I'm looking to get back to that physique so I can prepare myself for a longer bulk. Let me know if you have any questions, and subscribe for more content like this, where I'm basically documenting the things that I'm doing and sharing them with you so you can try to extract value from them and apply them to your own life. Thanks.